πάμε, έχει φουσκώσει πολύ αργά.
A powerful Atlantic storm swept across much of Europe, bringing destructive winds, torrential rain and widespread destruction to normal life from France to Germany, Italy and the Balkans. Meteorological service reported wind gusts exceeded 115 km/h, calling the storm one of the most aggressive front of the season. In northern France, coastal towns were hit by strong waves crashing against sea walls, forcing authorities to carry out evacuations. Paris authority reported hundreds of fallen trees causing delays in transport lines. The winds sounded like a freight train, said residents. Elodie Martin, "We never seen such strong gusts in November." Germany recorded some of the heaviest rainfall, with some areas of Bavaria and North Rhine-Westphalia raised 7-month worth of rain in 24 hours. Emergency service responded to dozens of flash flooding incidents. The levels of several rivers, including the upper tributaries of the Danube, raised rapidly, and official warning they could continue to rise. Italy also felt the full force of the storm. In Venice, high tides combined with the storm surge flooded the streets, forcing authorities to deploy mobile fruit barriers. Firefighters in Tuscany carried out more than 300 rescue operations after roofs were blown off and power lines collapsed. The ground shock from the wind, said Alessandro Rossi, who led parts of the workshop. Meteorologist Dr. Sofia Lehmann told the BBC the storm is unusual in the size of the speed. Warm sea temperatures contributed to its intensity, allowed to the rapidly intense fire as moving inland. Across the continent, more than 700,000 households were temporarily without power. Airports in Amsterdam, Munich, Geneva and Milan reported flight cancellation and significant delays. At least a dozen injured have been confirmed, although official fear in the number could rise and the situation continued to be easy. Authorities are urged residents to remain cautious as strong winds and unstable trees could pose a danger. Even after the storm moved eastward, flood warnings remain in effect in several countries. France was among the first to be struck. In Brittany, wind gusts surprised 116 km/h, ripping apart roofs and overturned vehicles. Thousands lost power, a high voltage line collapsed. "I felt like a house was breathing," said local resident Marianne Duval. "The windows were shaking so violently, I thought they would explode." In Germany, the storm defeated relentless rain. Some town in Baden-Württemberg recorded more than 120 mm in just 20 hours, triggering flash floods that overwhelmed the drainage system. Firefighters rescued residents from the submerged vehicles and flooded basements. Rail services across the country were heavily impacted, with the debris blocking key routes. Further south, Italy forced the dangerous combined by the heavy rain and intense wind. In Liguria and Tuscany, rivers burst their banks, flooded streets within minutes.
familie, maar...
With Nice activated an immersed flood barrier system, but parts in the historic city still soak knee-deep water as waves pushed inland. The lagoon looked like an open sea, said both Apiro and Marco Bellini. Eastern Europe was not spared. Slovenia and Croatia reported landslides after saturated soil gave way on a steep hillsides. In parts of Balkans, power outage affected tens of thousands. According to climate analyst Dr. Helena Kraus, the storms are behavior reflective water trends. Warmer sea surface and unstable air masses are creating storms that develop further and hit harder. Europe's seeing events that used to be rare becoming more frequent. Across the continent, airports in Prague, Zurich, Frankfurt and Milan experienced major delays. Schools in several regions remain closely to safety. Insurance experts estimated early damage could exceed hundreds of millions of euros. Authorities warn strong winds and rising rivers may continue through the next 24 hours, urging people to avoid coastal area and fast-moving waterways. Europe is facing yet another night of extreme weather as a powerful storm system tears across the continent, leaving a trail of destruction from Portugal to Poland. Meteorologists describe the system as highly dynamic, following an unusual warm Atlantic water-shaped temperature contrast of the continent. In Spain, coastal communities were battered, the wave towering over 10 meters, smashing waterfront, restaurants, and flooding seaside roads. Barcelona's port temporarily halted operation due to dangerous crosswind. I've lived by the sea for 40 years, said fisherman Elodie Martin. I never seen waves hit the promenade this hard. The storm intensified as it pushed north. France saw widespread outage, more than 300,000 homes plunged into darkness. Emergency crews traveling to assist rural villages blocked by the fallen trees. Heavy rain triggered flow in the Pyrenees, forcing evacuation in several valleys.
Je m'excuse, il y a une tempête à la roue là.
Crossing into Germany, the system unleashed a combination of heavy rain and drainage gale force wind. A river in Bavaria in Saxony continued to rise, threatening to overflow tonight. Rail operation cancelled dozens of long-distance trails, calling the storm one of the most disruptive events in the season. We're walking around the clock to clear tracks, said rail official Eric Stein, but the debris is coming down fast that we can remove it. Central Europe experienced rapid deterioration. Austria and Czech Republic report roofs turned off, scalding, collapsing and traffic halted due to fallen branches. Sirens echoing through the Vienna and emergency service responded to more than 1,200 calls within an hour. Further south, Italy is grappling with a severe flooding in Emilia-Romagna, already saturated from the previous storms. A new downpour overwhelmed riverbanks. Streets turned into fast-moving streams. Residents formed human chains to pull people and stranded cars. It was like a river suddenly came alive, say witness Luca Perotti. Airports across Europe from Lisbon to Warsaw forced lengthy delays as aircraft struggled with a shifting wind pattern. Climate experts warn storms like this are becoming more new normal, shaping the rising temperatures and increasingly unstable jet streams. Authorities urged the public to stay indoors, avoid coastal area and prepare to further determination of the storm continued its eastward march. Europe is routed after the wave of powerful storms swept across the continent, bringing hurricane-force wind, torrential rain, hail and flooding from Spain to Poland. Authorities have confirmed dozens of fatalities and hundreds of injured, with hundreds of thousands of households remain without electricity. In France, Paris, hammered by heavy rain, is a lighting force to close up the metro lines and grounded flights to Charlotte the airport. Streets and flying and borders turned into rivers. An emergency crew reported more than 5,000 clouds overnight. Germany also brought to breath with a tornado like a wind North Rhine-Westphalia, ripping roofs to homes and uprooted trees. Rail service were suspended, highway blocked, and the school closed to official urged residents to stay indoors. It felt like the sky exploded, said Jens Fischer, with so-called lifted to overturned by sudden gusts. In Italy, Venice and Milan were swept by the flash floods, while the Rome enduring the violent hailstorms that shattered windows and damaged cars. Authorities warned to rising river levels in the north, in the fear of further flooding in the Po Valley. Spain forcing massive coastal swells and lightning storms, particularly in Barcelona and Valencia, with Poland and Czech Republic struggled with the power cuts and transportation shutdowns after gale force winds across Central Europe. Airports across the continent suffered several days while thousands of travelers were stranded with the train station. Insurance provider estimates that the damage could reach billions of euros after gale force winds across the Central Europe. Airports across the continent suffered several days with thousands of Mediterranean said the storm system was following the coastal line by a Mediterranean air called Atlantic Front, creating a volatile chain reaction across the Europe. Scientists warn the climate change is making such extreme wide-reaching weather events increasingly frequent. The storm also suffered the European transport network. Rail service hit in Germany and France suffered severe disruption, while airports in Milan, Brussels and Prague experienced significant delay. Trucks were banned from the driving in some areas of Italy due to dangerous crosswalks. Meteorologists warn that climate change may be felt to intensify of this storm. We are seeing more frequent and violent weather events across Europe, said Dr. Hans Keller, a climate scientist in Berlin. European leaders pledged to carry off rapid relief force. France deployed military engineers to clear blocked roads, while Germany announced emergency funds to support reconstruction efforts. EU officials trusted to need a continental cooperation to deal with the climate-related disaster. For millions of people across Europe, this storm was not just a night to extreme weather, but another stark reminder of the continent's growing vulnerability to the fury of nature. Schools were ordered to close. Authority urged residents to stay indoors. Witnesses described a terrifying scenes. It was like a river rushing down by our streets. Cars were flooding and shops' windows collapsing in a matter of minutes, said Joe Martinez, a shop owner in central Valencia. Farmers in the surrounding area reported catastrophic losses with their citrus grove and the rice fields devastation of that flood. Local authorities have declared a state of emergency, and the Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez was pledged immediate assistance. The government stand with Valencia will rebuild and support all families affected. Experts warn that climate change is intensifying. Extreme weather events in the Mediterranean were warnings increasing the risk in torrential rain and flash floods in Valencia. The storm has left a trail of destruction and urged questions about preparedness of the storm to come.
Я домой хочу.
powerful Atlantic storm swept across much of Europe, bringing hurricane-force winds, torrential rain, and chaos in several countries, from the Atlantic coast of France and inland cities in Germany. Millions of people forced transport disruption, and emergency service worked at full capacity. In France, wind gusts exceeded 115 km/h, knocked down trees, cut power to more than 400,000 homes, and forced several airports to close. It sounded like a fire train was passing through our streets, said Elodie Martin, the resident of Brittany, where roads had blocked overnight. Southern Germany was hit by severe flooding when rivers burst at their banks. In Bavaria, rescue evacuated dozens of residents by boat after the local dam threatened to overflow. "We never seen the water rise too fast," explained firefighters Karl Neumann. Rail service in the region remains severely disrupted. In the Netherlands, authorities temporarily closed its section to famous Afdijk dam due to fear and a coastal wave. Meanwhile, Poland and Czech Republic reported widespread hailstorm that severely damaged cars and roads. A powerful storm swept across Europe, leaving a trail of destruction. Storm spanned Germany, across and the offshore. It is one of the most destructive weather events of the continent in the last decade. In France, coastal towns in Brittany and Normandy were hit by winds up to 115 km/h, which tore roofs, houses, and forced ferry service to be cancelled. In Paris, sudden flooding inundated routes and led to closure to some section of the metro. It felt like the city was flooded in a matter of minutes, said passenger Julien Maroux when they through waist-deep water. Southern Germany, including Bavaria, reported hailstorm the size of a golf ball that smashed car windows and damaged crops. Authorities confirmed several injured, and insurance companies warned that damage in agriculture could run into tens of millions of euros. Spain and Italy also experienced chaos. The streets of Valencia turned into rivers after 100 mm of rainfall in 2 hours. In Sicily, passed strong gusts of winds and left thousands of people without electricity. The storm raged all night, recalled Sicilian resident Lucia Romano. "We couldn't sleep, afraid that the roof might collapse." Several European nations have been struck by a wave of violent hailstorm, leaving behind the scene of chaos, destruction, and disbelief. From northern Italy to southern Germany, Austria, and parts of France, residents awakened the road crowded in the ice, damaged vehicles, and crops destroyed it in the fields. Meteorologists say the storm were followed by the clash of moist Mediterranean air with a strong cold front from the northern Europe, creating a supercell condition. Hailstorms are some larger than a golf ball, pounding the city center and rural area alike. In Mourning, cars were left with the shattered widespread, while the Bologna, Italy public transport was paralyzed. The hail-covered tram stack. Agriculture Associational report severe losses. Vineyard in Tuscany and orange in Austria suffered significant damage, with the farmers describing the storm as the worst in the decade. One farmer near Verona lamented, "In 10 minutes we lost what we had worked for all year." Emergency services were inundated with vehicles. Dozens of injuries were reported, mainly from the falling hail and the raw accident caused by sudden ice flakes.
Well, that's one hell of a hailstorm.
Firefighters in Austria rescued motorists stranded on a highway blackened in ice, while the France-Frome Valley flooded added the crisis and a hail-blocked drains. Video shared widely online showed iconic city squares buried under a layer of ice, sparked disbelief among the viewers. Tourists caught in the storm described as apocalyptic in the like winter in the middle of summer. Experts warned that Europe have seen a rise in extreme hail events in recent years, while the climate change likely intensify with wildly. Scientists know that the winter air called most Mishu, falling strong storm capable of production large destructive hail. A wave of intense hailstorms swept across Europe, leaving behind broken roofs, destroyed groups and devastation communities from Italy to Germany, France and Poland. Meteorologists describe the event as one of the strongest hailstorms in the recent year, caused the collisions of cold southern air and a fast-moving cold front that swept across the continent. In Italy, especially the areas around the Rome and Emilia-Romagna, the storm was accompanied by thunderstorm winds and hailstones the size of walnuts, which pelted cars and roofs and a thunderstorm roar. In a matter of seconds, it was winter, said local residents Luca De Santis. The streets turned white, we could hardly see anything. Several motorists were stranded off ice-blocked drainage system, flooded tunnels and city roads. Further north in Bavaria, Germany, the storm caused chaos in communities near the Munich and Augsburg. Cars were damaged, routes were uprooted and public transport was halted. Local authorities received more than 1,200 emergency calls in a few hours. Local authorities reported thousands of homes temporarily without electricity. The intensity of the rainfall overlapped the city drainage system, officials said. Farmers across southern Spain also suffered major losers. The high of the size of a golf ball damaged crops and greenhouse. This storm destroyed weeks of work, leading it a farmer near Seville. Experts warn that such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent due to climate change. Weather aide Hood Mama is true with a full, more violent storm, explaining climatologist Dr. Gieva Ortega. As the storm moves eastward toward the Mediterranean, cleanup efforts are underway, but many Spaniards are shockingly remain. A violent storm wreaked havoc across large parts of Europe, bringing torrential rain, strong winds and widespread flooding that paralyzed both cities and rural communities. The storm, one of the strongest in recent years, that hit countries from Spain, France and Germany and Poland, leaving millions of people affected. In the northern Italy, roads turned into rivers. In a matter of hours, the rescue service struggled to save motorists who were trapped. In Bavaria, Germany, entire areas were left without power and winds exceeding 113 km an hour. Ile-de-France region, bringing hurricane force winds, torrential rain and intense lighting that lit up the Parisian skyline. When our iconic boulevards were transformed into rivers, metro stations were flooded and thousands were left without electricity. According to Meteo France, when the gusts exceeded 120 km an hour in parts of the capital, with more than 16 mm of rainfall in just 3 hours, an amount normally seen over several weeks. The Seine River rose rapidly and water poured in unpressed to underground car park near the city center. I feel like the sky exploded, said Marie Larrier, a resident of Montreal district. It was a thunder every few seconds, windows shaking and water gushing through the streets like a waterfall. Emergency service received over 1,200 calls during the night, rescuing driving trapported submerged tunnels and responded to multiple reports of fallen trees. In the 15th arrondissement, the large earth collapsing out parked vehicles were parts of the Champs-Élysées were perilously closed due to debris. Several metro stations were forced to close after water cascaded down, stairways were portioned off, rep line was suspended. At least 14 flights were delayed or diverted on Charles de Gaulle and Orly airports, and again about 114 km on our battery runway. The 11 tower safety lights temporarily shut down due to the electrical surge in the 17th around this in a section of scuff flooding for the nearby structure, cities collapsing on the streets. Miraculously, no fatalities were reported. 35 people were injured, including 2 firefighters. Paris Major Ana Hidalgo called on an emergency meeting early Wednesday, urging calm to promises with restoration force. Our infrastructure, who pushed to the limits, she said. These events once again demonstrated the urgent need to climate adaptation in urban areas. Meteorologists described the storm as one of the most intense connective systems in decades, caused by the collisions in a humid Mediterranean air with a cold front swept in the Atlantic. This class generation is supercell system production extreme lighting activity to flash flooding across central France. Across social media, dramatic footage showed hail blanket sidewalks like a snow, bases standing in rising water and a lighting bolt taken near the Egg terminal. Europe, a powerful storm system has swept across large parts of Europe, bringing torrential rain, hurricane-force winds and widespread disruption from Spain to Germany. Named Storm Isadora by meteorologists, the violent weather left a trail of chaos, flooding streets, uprooted trees and cutting power of hundreds and thousands of homes. In France, wind exceeded 113 km an hour, battered the Atlantic coast, triggered roofs, the rebuilding and forced them to temporarily close it to 11 tower due to safety risks. In Paris, emergency service reported over 500 calls overnight as fallen trees blocked major roads and debris littered the city. It felt like the city is breathing in chaos, said local residents Lugamori. The wind was howling like a violent train. Further south Spain, in Dauphin, a relentless downpour that triggered flash flooding in parts of Valencia and Barcelona. Submerged cars and flooded metro station. Emergency crew carried out multiple water rescuing in resources as rainfall reached record-breaking levels, over 120 mm in 24 hours, according to the Spanish Meteorological Agency.
Minha Nossa Senhora, tá voando tudo a ceia. Ah, fica.
A powerful wave of hailstorm has battered several parts of Europe, leaving communities struggled with the damage, disruption and shock. The severe weather-struck countries including Italy, France, Germany and Switzerland, where a hailstorm the size of a golf ball in the same areas in Leggero fell in devastation force. In northern Italy, vineyards in Lombardy and Veneto were shattered with the farmers reported crops losers of up to 18%. It's heartbreaking, said vineyard Gula Benager, surrounding the roof of destroyed vines. A whole year work lost in 15 minutes. France also suffered widespread chaos. In Lyon and Dijon, streets turned white into hail blanket cars and blocked drains, caused sudden flash floods. Motorways were brought in standstill and authorities reported dozens of incidents and drivers struggled with the ice conditions. In southern Germany, roofs were smashed and a window shattered, particularly in Bavaria, where emergency crews responded to thousands of calls within hours. Madrid has been plunged into chaos after a powerful storm swept across the Spanish capital, bringing torrential rain, gale force winds and a flash flooding that left entire neighborhoods underwater. In just few hours, more than a month was in rain, overwhelming drainage and transformed streets into fast-flowing rivers. Cars were swept away, metro station flooded, and power lines collapsed, plunging parts of the city in darkness. It was terrified, said Lauza Fernandez, a shop assistant who was received from the standard car. The water rose so quickly, I thought I would make it out alive. Authorities confirmed several fatalities and dozens of injured. Hundreds of residents were evacuated from basements in low-lying homes, and emergency service working around the clock, often wading chest deep through the floodwaters. Public transportation suffered severe disruption. Madrid metro network were particularly shut, while train and buses forced long delays. Barajas International Airport suspended flight for several hours, stranded passenger amid scenes of confusion. Tourists were also caught in the chaos, with landmarks like Puerta del Sol and Plaza Major submerged. Videos shared online showed hailstones bouncing across historic squares and water pouring down the steps of the Prada Museum. In surrounding region, farmland was badly hit. Vineyards and olive groves were inundated just weeks before harvest, threatening significant agricultural losers. Economists warned the storm financial toll could run into hundreds of millions euros. Meteorologists explained that the storm was triggered by a clash between humid Mediterranean air cold Atlantic front intensified by record summer heat. Experts warn that climate change is increasing to frequency such extreme weather events across the Spain, already one of Europe's most climate vulnerable nations.
Saberte, ja tu ers jaku jeusiko, ez? Joskerrak ez dutela ipinit ondoa. Hau da, benetan, impresionantea. Hau da.
Several European countries are assessing the damage after severe hailstorm swept across the continent, leaving a trail of destruction from France and Italy to Germany, Austria and Switzerland. The storm intensified the unstoppable air masses that collided over Central Europe, produced hailstones the size of a tennis ball that mashed a car, damaged roofs and injured hundreds of people. In northern Italy, cities in Lombardy and Veneto saw streets covered in ice, and hospitals treated dozens and partying for cars in a heat injury caused by broken glass. In Bavaria, Germany, cars were left covered in dents and vineyards suffered catastrophic damage. It was like bombing, saying Hans Killer, a farmer's near Munich. In 10 minutes, our entire harvest were destroyed. Austria, also facing chaos in emergency service, responded to collapsed roofs and blocked highways. In Switzerland, tourists in Lorenz and Alps scalped dramatic footage in hailstorms, spilled it up like snowdrifts, transformed summer landscape in winter owns. Flights in Zurich and Geneva airports were delayed and cancelled after hail-damaged parked planes. Meteorologists said the storm was caused by the collisions between the Mediterranean air and the cold northern front, exacerbating the recorded summer heat across Europe. Scientists warn that climate change is contributed to more frequent and destructive hailstorms, and in the continent growing climate-related problems. Agriculture has been hit hardest, heat damaged estimates of hundreds and millions of euros. Vineyard, orange and cornfield across Central Europe has been destroyed, threatening both in local economy and a food supply chain. Insurance companies are already preparing for one of the most expensive weather events in the year. Government has promised to provide assistance and clean up on the aftermath and the natural disaster by sending soldiers in the rural area to clear roads and protect damaged homes from the further rain. However, for the many residents, the storm was stuck remaining in the increasing severity of extreme weather events. violent storm has battered Germany, causing strong winds, torrential rain and widespread disruption north from the North Sea to Bavaria. The system, one of the worst intense of the season, was uprooted trees, torn off roofs and left hundreds of thousands of people without power. In Hamburg and Bremen, storm surge flooded riverside neighborhoods and emergency crews rushed to build bird as the Elbe River overflowed. In Berlin, fallen trees blocked major roads in the tram lines, forcing communities to find alternative roads. Munich International Airports reported more than 100 cancelled flights, while trains in Bavaria and Saxony were halted due to the debris in tracks. Authorities confirmed multiple fatalities, including driver crushed by the fallen trees and the rescue workers swept away by the floodwaters. Dozens of people were injured by many debris flying through the city center. Hospital reported an increase in emergency admissions overnight. Residents described the storm as apocalyptic. The wind sounded like a freight train outside my window. We were building and shaking, said Anne Miller, a resident of Berlin. The Spanish region of Valencia has been hit by a severe storm that has brought torrential rain, violent winds and severe flooding, leaving streets submerged and continues gradually to recover. Meteorological system pulled the most shoe by Mediterranean dumped more than 200 mm of rain in just 24 hours, one of the most intense downpour in decades. Entire neighborhoods in the city of Valencia were left underwater, and the residents were forced to wade through waist-deep water. Emergency service carried out hundreds of rescue, including drivers trapped in submerged cars and families evacuated from ground floor apartments. At least 4 fatalities have been confirmed, while dozens of people have been injured by falling debris and traffic incidents. The part of Valencia, one of the barriers in Europe, was temporarily closed after crane that knocked down by strong winds disrupted shipments across the Mediterranean. Public transport was brought in a standstill, subway lines were suspended, flights were diverted, and the rail service were cancelled throughout the region. Train service was suspended in several provinces, and dozens of flights were cancelled. He rerouted the Charles of Gaulle and Orly Airport. In a Burlex vineyard, Elodie Martin, the wet summer suffered further damage, raising fears and a poor harvest. We have lost entire section of our vineyard, explained winemaker Claire Roseau. This is a devastation blow to our livelihood. And in French, entire minister deployed 3,500 firefighters, and the regional governor urged residents to stay indoors. 2 deaths have been confirmed, including the driver who was gassed and crushed in the fallen trees. Meteorologists said the storm was caused by the warm Atlantic air cooled in with a cold Arctic system, resulting in a strong wind. Such winds are becoming more frequent in the intense, warned climatologist Dr. Jean Morel, linking the storm to changing climate conditions. President Emmanuel Macron experienced solidarity with the affected families, promising rapid assistance to fund the recovery. But for many residents, the night of destruction will not forget anytime soon. We had storm before, said local teacher Sophie Laurent from Naples, but never anything that shocked the earth so much. Farmers estimated the dramatic it's $1 million euros, especially in vineyards that produced world-famous wines. It's devastating, said Jean-Paul Lefroy, a winemaker near Lyon. In just 10 minutes, the works and the entire season was destroyed. Further east in Croatia and Slovenia, hailstones the size of eggs smashed windows and stripped streets bare. Emergency service worked through the night and cleared debris to restore power to affected areas. Local authority described the damage as serious and extensive. Meteorologists across Europe are linking the surge in severe hailstorm to rising temperature and atmospheric instability. The Mediterranean is warming faster than the global average, warning climatologist Dr. Elodie Martin. This creates ideal conditions to explosive storm to formation of giant hailstorm. The European Severe Laboratory reported that more than 400 hail-related incidents were recorded in 34 hours, of extremely high number of October. Experts warn that such events, once considered rare, are now becoming more common due to the effects of climate change. Cleanup efforts are underway across the continent, and insurance companies are assessing the extent of the damage. From broken skylights in Rome and flooded streets in Munich and stories fury that what yet another stark reminder that Europe weather is becoming more unpredictable and dangerous than ever before. Several metro lines, including lines 1, 4, and 13, experienced major destruction as the water swept in the station. Communities forced long delay with their rapid urgent residents to avoid necessary travel. Power outage left more than 25,000 homes in the dark, particularly in the Paris southern suburbs. The storm also damaged parts in the ELF tower lighting system, forcing engineers to shut it off to safety inspirations. Lighting stuck near Notre Dame Cathedral, creating dramatic by the homeless flash captured by onlookers. Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo urged calm, praising first response to their swift action. Our city was forced to severe weather before, but the intensity of the last night's storm show how climate change is amplifying these events, she said. We will assist all those affected. They strengthened our flood resilience. Meteorologists described the storm as one of the most violent in decades as a result of a powerful Atlantic depression scalding with warm continental air from the northern France. Experts warn that such extreme weather events could become more frequent if Europe's climate continues to warm. By morning, Parisians emergency to survive the damaged streets, literally the branches flooded, cave terrace, and disrupted train schedule. Yet a month aftermath were also relief. Clear skies returned the city resilience spirit shone through the once again.